Alright, welcome back to part 7 of the customized knife series. And we are back. We're getting there. This is the main, I guess, Chicago-style screw that holds the blade to the linings and scales. But before I work on it, I want to line up all the smaller holes because there's much less room for error on them. So, in order to line everything up, it's initial assembly time. The holes were just slightly too small, so I carefully widened them using a needle file. Then, to give the screw heads insets onto the scales, I used a 5/32 drill bit to carve away some of the top layers. By hand. The bits were small and sharp enough that this felt so much better and controlled rather than using a drill press. The insetting was necessary because the screws are only so long, and they wouldn't have reached the tiny metal spacers that go in between the screws. Now it's time for the larger hole. It turned out there was still a large amount of excess wood to match the lining pattern, and the file was struggling to make any progress. So, I opted to use a 3/16 drill bit that was near precisely the same size as the lining hole to widen the hole on the scales first. In order to make sure the drill didn't drift, I once again used the metal lining as a guide. I also tried adding insets to the larger holes, but I only had one bit of the right size, and it was drifting around the center, so I called it quits to be on the safe side. Also, the screw was already long enough to reach this time, so it wasn't really necessary. Almost there. Yeah, nice. We have clearance. It opens and closes. Finally have a cursory look at what it's going to look like. Alright, so all that's really left is sanding down the sides to match, cutting out the beak, and then carving the beak to shape, and the eyes. That's still a lot of things, actually. Alright, let's get the final shape dialed in. Okay, so some things I'm noticing. The manufacturing tolerance between the left and right plates. There are places where it's a little different. Like, for example, right here, where this side plate is supposed a little bit longer, so I ended up scratching some of the paint off. The little knurlings, I'm just gonna say the divots, for when you place the thumb on, I'm going to go in and later clean those up as well. Inner edge down here is much closer. There's a lot of material I have to remove here. The spring lock, one plate is actually larger, this place where you're supposed to hook the thumb on. So to get this area cleaned out, I think I'll have to take it apart and put in just this type of plate, because I have another one disassembled that I can just use for spare parts. Okay, I'm, let's say, 75% of the way there in terms of how dialed in the edges are. I still haven't done the head because I still need to match this up. After I cut out the beak cutout, then I can glue all these together and form all this together. Maybe not glue in. Maybe I'll just put a pin through the eye registration. But I can sand all these together to get the final form, so I'm waiting on that. I've done most of this with 80 grit sandpaper, so there are these deep gashes visible on the side. So now I'm slowly working my way up. 150, then probably 220, then 320, then 400 to get everything as smooth as I can. I am starting to bite into a lot more of the metal plates, but I think it's unavoidable. I could go and coat all the plates in something else. I don't have anything a good material to do that with. And adding things like masking tape is going to add an extra thickness to the entire build that might make things difficult. I've done what I can in this configuration. I need to break this apart and switch out the plates so I can do this inner liner lock portion. At the same time, I'll check the pairings of all the plates I have. There's only really 2 matchups, but I did break these knives apart at the same time and the parts might have gotten mixed, so maybe one plate is a better fit. I did end up sanding some of the flappy single layer stickouts up ahead because I didn't want them breaking. Some of the edges, the dark veneer, the grassy, really long fibered veneer is breaking off at the edges, so I think I'll cover that by beveling all the edges. Overall, at this stage, it feels even better in the grip now. I have no idea how I want to deal with the black inner linings becoming sanded down and becoming silver. Maybe I'll leave it silver. Maybe I'll have to invest in a black enamel spray paint so I can make them black again. And same thing with the eyes. I might have to go out and buy epoxy, so I might just have to go buy just two or three things to really finish this project up in a clean manner. Looking at the two possible pairings, it looks like both possibilities are neither here nor there. It's just that the manufacturing tolerances on these are large. Let's just say large. It does look like, though, of the two possibilities, the one I have is as close as it gets. So now I'm going to I should label these while I'm at it. There. The ones with the masking tape is the pair. Let's take these two, which have both without the spring getting in the way, and reassemble this. Now I've assembled and disassembled these several times, and it's made me think how I maybe don't want to glue the beak piece inside, because what that will essentially do is it'll make these two pieces stuck together in this way in perpetuity. So I would have to slide both plates in, and then the knife, and these little space. So that's going to be difficult. It's going to be painful. So maybe I need to think about, maybe the beak is only glued in on one side, and then somehow the plates are pressed together so they don't splay open. Let's try something. I'm going to take one of these screws and stuff it in the eye socket. Does that look fine? No, it looks tacky. Okay, so problems that I need to solve right now. Actually, I really need to solve this right now. Let's try a second test. We have the beak piece, and we have clamps. Let's lock these down and practice assembling everything in this manner. One washer in there. Oh, come on. I think I lost the nylon washer alignment. Okay, definitely easier the second time. Okay, I learned a few things from this exercise. One is that gluing the middle bridge to both sides of the plates is an exercise in frustration that is not worth doing. Second thing, though, a little bit more importantly, the eye hole on the printout matches the eye hole that was drilled out. I can just go ahead and drill this, and it should be proper registry. So, things I still need to do. I need to sand away right where the liner lock is going to be so my thumb can actually access it without digging in between the two plates to push it. I got the profiling done as far as I care to take it as of this stage. For fun, I did take it up to 400 grit sandpaper. The silver on the inner linings are looking really smooth. I'm almost tempted to just leave it as is, but then it's going to be susceptible to rust. So I still am considering getting a black enamel spray paint just to finish everything off later, but I can decide that later. Next part is cutting out the beak cutout and then drilling a registration hole right there. I decided to just draw in the guidelines for the beak cutout. The top line will be determined by the dark brown veneer border, while the bottom line starts from where the inner metal liners end. I also decided to just file away the material rather than getting a saw or using power tools. To sharpen the final meeting point of the lines, I carved it using a knife. For the eye hole, I decided to use the drill press because it was supposed to be a guaranteed straight hole. But, although the initial cut was clean, the bit wandered off-center, and this can be caused by wood grain or debris. I simply tried again slowly to re-establish the center, and this time it worked. Okay, now I get to finally peel this.
Can I just say I both like and hate Torx screws? Because yeah, they look nice, I guess. They have a nice radial symmetry that is a little bit more pleasing than a flathead screwdriver. And the Phillips head has this like image of you see it, you want to take it apart, or oh, this is cheaply made, which is never necessarily true. It's so ubiquitous that it just ends up having that connotation associated with it. So you see Torx, which is the six-sided star shaped. You're like, oh, fancy. It's not easy. It strips and whatever. It doesn't really matter.
You can clearly see the toothpick plug. Now I have leftover toothpick, and it should fit this drill hole quite well. So I can use this to align all the pieces together. And it is fitting, which is good. Did I mention that these tiny screws used to be glued in when I first assembled a knife? That was a pain. They fully expected you not to take this apart. Now, with this single point of fixture, it's not rotating, so that's good. The inner plates are holding it stable. There's a little bit of spacing here, and that's actually probably because it's too thick. So it's probably pushing up against the two outer boards here. It's causing the two plates to open up. So something I can do to avoid that is to actually incline it a little bit this way. I sanded away at the middle piece until it fit well, though it wasn't easy. I found out after several fitting attempts that because all the screws were along one side of the scales, the linings and scales are splayed out in 2 directions. I didn't manage to get rid of the gap entirely, but I'm going to say it's enough for now. The good news is that just the eye-hole peg seems to be enough to hold the middle piece in place. So now I get to start shaping the head and beak. I just had a creative thought. Because this is a brown-capped rosy finch, and this beak color is causing it to show all the way over here, does it make sense to either A, recut this out of the darker walnut, or B, cut this entire thing a little bit depressed, and then lay a thin piece of the dark brown veneer on top? Because if the veneer is wet enough, I think I can bend it. I might have to do something like heat forming. Part of me really wants to do it because that would make it look a whole lot better than this. Got a bit of delamination at the top right there. I'm gonna really quickly fix this up with some glue. Basically invisible. Okay, so what all do you need to bend wood? You need water, you need heat. So water is just going to be soaking some of this dark type veneer. Heat is going to be from a heat gun. Let's say 7 centimeters is what I need. You can already see it being very soft. Whatever amount of heat that is first. Apparently a lot. It's only slightly scary. Got a pretty good bend going. I am noticing that there was a nick in the veneer, so I might just have to do this all over again. But for now, this is sufficient. Lock it in its curve using this clamp and let it dry. I would say that's a success, surprisingly. Okay, so I've done some more cleanup on the beak. I've started rounding out the beak a little bit more. It's still a very square profile. It is much rounder now. I might keep it as is. When I take this out, I might make it smoother. Okay, so I just added 1 pencil lead width worth of line across both sides. That's going to be how much I'm shaving off. The veneer bending worked out really well, and by clamping it, I was able to get a sharper curve locked down. Okay, I'm most of the way there. I marked right here and here. That still needs a little bit more work. The outer dimension isn't finalized, so I could, for example, to get rid of this place where I lost a lot of the veneer in the sanding phase, I could push that down even further, which would mean that this space is actually not enough. Having come all this way, I want the grains straighter. Okay, I come back from break, and surprise, the bending was too successful. It is now far more than I initially intended it to. Might be fine. It just means that it's going to have a lot more tension in a direction that will help the glue rather than fight it. I do wonder if I just kind of pat that area, it does fix its shape. Cool. I now have malleable veneer. Let's mark off the cutoff, and I did wonder about this last time I was cutting this. What is the best way to cut a curled vertical piece of veneer? Yeah, that wasn't bad at all. Now, I have no idea what the proper way to clamp this would be. I think I just have to hold this for 24 hours. Initial hold down is 30 minutes. I just need to do this for 30 minutes, I guess. Alright, it's been a minute. I'm bored. Okay, tiny update. A little rod in there, just to hold down that one corner. I have these sort of clips. I think that's as good as it's gonna get.